Please join me in a moment of centering silence. Our in-gathering hymn is 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Madison. This is a place where curious seekers gather to explore spiritual, ethical, and social issues in a safe and accepting environment. Unitarian Universalism supports the freedom of conscience of each individual, as together we seek to be a force for good in the world. My name is Maureen Friend. And on behalf of the congregation and the Board of Trustees, I'd like to extend a special welcome to visitors. We're a welcoming congregation, so whoever you are, we celebrate your presence among us. Newcomers are encouraged to stay for our fellowship hour after the service and to visit the library, which is directly across from the center doors of the auditorium. Bring your drinks and your questions. Members of our staff and lay ministry will be on hand to welcome you. This is a good time to turn off your phones. Experience guides are generally available to give a building tour after each service. So if you'd like to learn more about this sustainably designed addition or our national landmark meeting house, please meet near the large glass window on the left side of the auditorium. We welcome children to stay with us during the service. Remember that it often becomes difficult for those in attendance to hear in this lively acoustic environment. And so our child haven and the commons are excellent places to go when you or your child needs to talk or move around. The service can still be seen and heard from there. I'd like to acknowledge those individuals who help the services run smoothly. So today, the person who's running the sound is Mark Schultz. Our lay minister is Ann Smiley. The greeter was Pamela McMullen. We have two ushers today, Patricia Becker and Ron Cook, and the coffee and the other beverages were made and provided for you by Terry Felton and Jean Hills. The plants, these beautiful orchids, were taken care of by Karen Updike today. And if you'd like a tour, Pamela McMullen is the person that we have listed to meet you over there after the service. I have another announcement. Today is Madison Outreach LGBTQ Pride Parade, which begins at 1 in the 600 block of State Street, Madison. So Madison UUs gather behind a Standing on the Side of Love banner. It'll be the big yellow one. And we head up to the state capitol and around the Capitol Square, and we'll be accompanied by music, upbeat music, on our radio station, WMUU 102.9. So just, can you give me a show of hands, people who knew before I made this announcement that we had a radio station? Good, you beat the 9 o'clock audience. So bring your portable radio or an iPod for the best sound, and wear your yellow Standing on the Side of Love t-shirt or whatever other t-shirt you have, and bring some water. So please note the other announcements on the red floors insert in your order of service, which describe upcoming events at the Society and provide more information about today's activities. Again, welcome. We hope that today's service will stimulate your mind, touch your heart, and stir your spirit.
Come hoof and trunk and tail and horn and paw and wing and claw. Come bird and reptile, mammal born, all full of nature's law. Bring bark and crow and ribbit too, and silent stare and hiss. Bring purr and trill and warble too, and voice no ear can miss. We gather here, each life and all, to celebrate and sing, to honor creatures large and small. 'Tis holiness they bring. And if you will rise now in body or spirit and join in the words of chalice lighting printed in your order of service. We see divinity in every living thing, the feathered, the finned, the furred, the winged, the scaled, the four-legged, and the two. We light this chalice in recognition of all divine sparks that together celebrate the web of life. May we remember that we are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent, and it is good. And before we join together in song, if you'll take a moment to turn and greet your neighbor. And I invite anyone who'd like to come a little closer for the story to come on up. I was going to say, come on down, or I'm going to make some of those grown-ups come sit down here. Oh, here comes one. If you can get up, you're a better man than I am. Look at their stuffed animals coming too. Well, do any of you have a pet? You do? What's your pet? Two dogs, cockroaches? Usually not a great thing, but okay. They're in a Hissing cockroaches. There's one of those at the zoo. Freaks me out. Hissing cockroaches. That is awesome. My kids would love that. Don't tell them you have them. Anybody else? Who else has a pet? Morris?
Nora.
You have a cat, right? Nori. Great. No bed bugs, no cockroaches, no. Well, our story today is about a little boy who wanted a pet. What do you think of the pet up there in the picture? What is that? A dragon. What do you think of a dragon as a pet? Is that going to end well, you think, or no? Fire all over the place. That's true. Yeah, and it is a dragon at a restaurant. You're right. This book is on the tad bit silly side. So. On Monday, I asked my mother if I could have a dog. A dog is a good pet, I said. No, she said, dogs are too messy. On Tuesday, I asked my mother if I could have a dog. A dog is a very good pet, I said. No, she said, dogs are too loud. On Wednesday, I asked my mother if I could have a dog. A dog is the best pet of all. No, she said, no dogs. On Thursday, I asked my mother if I could have a dragon. A dragon, she said? I've never thought of a dragon for a pet. She thought for a bit. If you can find a dragon, you can keep it for a pet. Famous last words, right? Every parent in the room just went, oh. Dragons are not easy to find. There were no dragons in the park. There were no dragons at the beach. There were no dragons in the woods. There were no dragons at the zoo. At last, I found a dragon. This dragon was at the drugstore. He was wearing dark glasses and a hat. I asked the dragon to come home with me. The dragon said no. You can sleep in my bed. He still would not come. You can play with my toys. The dragon said yes. Dragons like to play with toys, but they do not like to put them away. They do not like to help with chores, and they make a mess in the kitchen. I was trying to figure out what he's making there. He's got bananas, chocolate syrup, milk. That sounds pretty good, right? And what's he cracking into the blender? Can you see? Eggs. And that's the part where it kind of goes, ooh, eggs. I don't know what, he's just making a mess. They roast hot dogs in the living room. You were right. You said fire. You were right. Might be handy, though, if you want a s'more in the middle of the day. He's your guy. And they dance to loud music all night long. Look at the poor boy trying to sleep. My mother did not like this dragon. She asked the dragon to please leave. The dragon would not go. Then she told the dragon to leave now. The dragon still would not go. Finally, my mother got angry. She stomped her foot. She told the dragon to leave this minute or else. The dragon just shook his head and went back to eating spaghetti in the bathtub. What do you guys think of that idea, spaghetti in the bathtub? It would clog up the drain. Does anybody think that this would be fun? Okay, because I read this book to my kids last night, and Owen said, I want to do that. So I'm just testing to see if anybody else thinks this is a good idea. It's just my kid, isn't it? Lucky, lucky me. I'm worried about going home today, because I might find this. Too bad we don't have a dog, I said. Dragons don't like dogs. The dragon looked worried. Dragons are afraid of dogs, I said. The dragon began to shake. A dog would chase the dragon away, I said. The dragon ran to my toy box and jumped inside. Maybe you're right, my mother said. Maybe we need a dog. I put a sign in the window, dog wanted. Soon there was a knock at the door. It was a dog. The dragon saw the dog. He grabbed his hat and ran out of the door. Thank goodness we have a dog, said my mother. A dog is a good pet. My dog wagged its tail. Okay, now look at this picture. What's the little boy doing? What's he doing? Can you tell? Yeah. What's he doing with his hand? He's got a thumbs up. Who's he giving the thumbs up to? Yeah, what's the dragon doing? He has two thumbs up. My mother would say those two, they were in cahoots. Do you see that? Everybody's feeling bad for this scared and worried dragon. He's going on holiday. Look at him. He's like, I got you a dog. Yes, I said, a dog is the best pet of all. So today we are celebrating all the animals in our lives, including our sometimes dirty, sometimes loud, sometimes messy pets, maybe our dogs, maybe our cats. We are his who go home, give all of those pets a hug or a hello. I don't think you hug a cockroach, right? Just give them a hello from all of us. Thank you for being such great listeners. We are gonna rise in body or spirit and sing you out to summer. Our first excerpt this morning from Bonnie Friedman. Outside the cathedral holding ancient relics in Valencia, a woman kissed pigeons. She saw these birds as symbols of God, gray and white and black as discarded shells. These were creatures I'd been taught to think of as filthy. They seemed filthy, in fact, with their strange orange eyes and their patchy feathers. But now, while I looked, they turned into doves. Of course, they always were doves, or rather, of course, doves always really were a type of pigeon. But I never really believed it until this woman showed me her belief. Her kiss transformed ugliness to beauty. So it was like a fairy tale after all. It was the old story. What is loved reveals its loveliness. Here she squatted, radiant, smiling, enrobed in life, in a dozen pairs of folded wings, in a dozen pairs of pearl gray, and as I looked, yes, even lavender, even royal purple wings, a woman in an ordinary black cotton dress who smiled as if she knew she was the luckiest person on earth, covered in blessing. This next one from Ganilla Norris, reminding us that in addition to demonstrating the spiritual practices of play and attention, our pets can teach us about enthusiasm, joy, and love. I wonder how different life would be for me if I could be as lacking in self-doubt and self-judgment as my dog. Putnam's whole being demonstrates an assumption that he is a lovable creature, a deserving creature, and an enjoyable one. His round old self simply squirms with the sacred knowledge that he is one of God's creatures. To act as if one had the total endorsement of the universe behind one's particular existence would be extraordinary. I hedge my bets by offering to others what I myself want, by restricting my requests for love and help to those I know will not reject me out of hand. I am oh so careful, whereas I could, with a Putnam-like trust, meet the world with a joyful, natural wag. And this last one from Jenny Marie Pulliam. I have a habit of collecting the cast-offs, the unwanted, injured, lost, or otherwise unfortunate animals I come across. Since childhood, I have been known to come home with lost kittens, unwanted dogs, orphaned birds, wounded snakes, malnourished lizards, lacerated horses, or any combination of the above. Some have died despite my best efforts. Others found aid with wildlife programs and were released. Yet more were adopted by friends and family who had lost an animal of their own. A few have, through luck and circumstance, spent years with me. Of all the animals, Einstein the iguana is one of my favorites. Despite my family's initial protest, all of them now fondly remember her. Einstein came to us as the result of a compromise between my mother and me. I really wanted a snake. However, my mother refused to have something in the house that required live food. When I suggested a vegetarian lizard, she had no arguments left. We found Einstein in a small shop in Berkeley back when few people thought of iguanas as pets. She was on sale because she was missing all but 3 of the trademark spines on her back, and I fell in love with her instantly. I could tell you hours of stories about our adventures with Einstein. The moral of most would be expect the unexpected, or maybe check your assumptions. I could tell you how our very male-acting lizard surprised all of us when he laid eggs, and we had to reevaluate his gender. How she used to walk around with the parakeet on her back, unconcerned with this talkative passenger. Or her trip to Texas in our truck, sunning herself on the dashboard and receiving stares from strangers who didn't believe she was actually alive. Life on the boat with her. If you ever need a good pet for a boat, I highly recommend an iguana. How she overcame her fear of dogs and surprised us all by chasing our 4 full-size dogs out of the kitchen so that she could beg for scraps of food. But the thing that surprises people the most, the thing I am most often asked, is, does she have any kind of personality? Oh, yes, my dear, she sure does. Thank you for the music this morning. In a work titled, "What Does It Mean to Be Human?" Virginia Ramey Mollenkott shared the following. In my peripheral vision, there was a flash of greenish red, then a sickening thud against the window pane. I jumped up from my desk, dreading what I would find, and sure enough, on her side in the grass beneath my window lay a female cardinal. Nearby, her crimson partner stood his ground in anxious dignity. I waited and waited, hoped and hoped. I knew these cardinals were recent parents. They had nested in a bush next to my bedroom window, and often they whistled me awake. Would this royal lady ever witness the flying of her young? About an hour later, the one eye that I could see came open, staring at first, but with a gradually returning alertness. Good, I thought. Then she began to turn her head, cautiously righting herself. Later, a tentative hop. And finally, with great suddenness, she winged her way across the yard, low at first, but then swinging upward. What was it that stirred and lifted within me at her sudden return to glory? What was it that did an inner dance later that day when I saw her and her mate darting here and there across the front lawn, teaching those fledglings to fly? How can I name that yearning connectedness, that interwoven oneness, that surging energy by which all things consist? I live and move within it, and it lives and moves within me, yet it is beyond my naming. Perhaps we might call it love. Perhaps we call it life. To recognize and honor it is reverence. To deny it is to delude oneself with the notion that differences like form, species, color, and function are ultimately important. To deny connectedness is to deny reality. And that denial is a mistake, an illusion. Alas, however, in a world of diverse forms that certainly do appear to be separate and competing for resources, the result of this illusion can be tragic, cruel, barbaric. How then can we stimulate in each other the delicate fellow feeling, the connected awareness, the reverence that deals not death, but life? Here is our challenge, and it is a great one: to remind the human spirit that despite apparent differences, all of us have wings of one sort or another, and all of us are intended to fly. Welcome to our Blessing of the Animals service. Welcome to this gathering that celebrates our connectedness, our undeniable bond with all these creatures. We gather in reverence, we gather in gratitude, we gather in humility. We gather to remind ourselves of our responsibility to these creatures, large and small. As I was preparing for the weekend, I came across the work of the South Bay Wildlife Rehab. Now, I had thought that I had probably heard about every category and type of animal rescue and rehab program that was out there. The Mountain Lion Foundation, the Snow Leopard Trust, Save the Gorillas, Save the Elephants, and more. But South Bay was a new one for me. They're a group whose work includes saving injured and orphaned hummingbirds. In an article in the Los Angeles Times, Terry Mazur says of this work, "Only a crazy person would do this." Mazur has had as many as 60 hummingbirds at a time flitting around in the cages on her back patio. During the summer, she takes a 3-month hiatus from her job. Far from being a break, her summers with the hummingbirds entail 15 to 17-hour days of nonstop work. From 5 a.m. to nightfall, every half hour, pre-fledgling hummingbirds must be fed with a syringe full of a special formula made only in Germany. Mazur guides a tube down the throats of the little birds that are not much larger than bumblebees. I know, imagine that. Between feedings, she changes the feeders for the older birds, cleans cages, and monitors the birds' social interactions. You can't go out to dinner, she says. You can't go out of town. You can't have a life. When they're ready to live in the wild, Mazur opens the aviary door and watches the tiny birds spiral hundreds of feet into the air and disappear among the clouds. Even after seeing it hundreds of times, that moment still makes the long hours of drudgery worthwhile. She says, I do this because when you release them, that is pure joy. Terry is referencing those same feelings that Virginia Mollenkott described when she asked, what is it that stirs and lifts within us at a bird's sudden flight? What is it that does that inner dance? Terry says pure joy, a sense of yearning connectedness, Virginia says, an interwoven oneness. Call it love, call it life. And what do we do with this yearning to life? How do you respond to that pure joy that comes into our lives from animals? These creatures, whether winged or furred, offer us much. Moments of insights, moments that can turn our world upside down, inside out. They can give us a glimpse of a different and better way. My colleague Gary Kowalski loves to tell the story of one of our Unitarian forebears who 153 years ago had a sudden conversion because of an animal. And that Unitarian is Henry Bergh, who's the founder of the ASPCA. Now, up until he was in his early 50s, Henry Bergh hadn't done anything particularly remarkable with his life. He was wealthy, the son of a successful shipbuilder. He was married. He and his wife, Catherine, loved going to see plays and the opera, traveling to other countries. He tried writing some plays which were produced but never got very good reviews. Now, when he was 54, he was in Russia as a diplomat. He saw a poor Russian peasant with his horse. The horse had fallen and was stuck in the mud and was struggling to get up. The man was whipping the fallen horse. Henry called out for his coachman to stop and translate, "Tell that man to stop whipping that horse, or I will get down and whip him." The Russian man, affected by Henry Bergh's shiny diplomat's uniform, stopped, took off his hat, apologized, and asked for forgiveness. Now, we don't know what changed Henry Bergh's heart that day, what caused him to stop. We don't know what happened to that man and his horse. But I can guess that Henry Bergh may have felt that yearning connection. Maybe it was the fact that the horse had fallen and was unable to get up. Somehow and in some way, his experiences and his values converged, and in that moment, Henry Bergh was a changed man. From that day on, he devoted his life to saving and protecting animals from harm. He worked steadily and tirelessly to change people's hearts, to change their behavior, to change the laws of New York State and our nation. He once said that it would be a greater triumph, a more important feat, to plant kindness in people's hearts than to build a railroad across America. After his epiphany that day in Russia, he went to England. He met with the man who had founded the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, learning from him the steps and the strategies he would need to follow to create such a society in the United States. He went back to New York and he got to work. He contacted all of his friends and associates, telling them one by one and in small groups of our moral obligation to put an end to the unnecessary suffering and death of animals. Of central importance to him was the fact that animals cannot speak up on their own behalf. So he said we must be their compassionate protectors. He wrote letters, editorials, essays, gave lectures and speeches, imploring people that the laws must change. His lectures drew larger and larger crowds, and support swelled. He amassed enough signatures on a petition to request a charter to start the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and in April of 1866, that charter was granted, anti-cruelty laws were passed, and the ASPCA was granted the power to enforce those laws. Bergh was the first president of the ASPCA and continued as their president for the rest of his life. He worked every day and every night as the great protector of animals. He marched right up to animals' owners. He marched right into dogfights, stables, slaughterhouses, uninvited, of course. He believed that mercy to animals means mercy to all. He was called the friend to every friendless beast. And he said if animals had to wait until mercy in human affairs was resolved, they would still be waiting at the second coming. Henry Bergh is one example of someone who recognized a deep interconnection and a deep responsibility. The suffering of one animal and the cries of many compelled him to be a vehicle for higher wisdom and a greater good. Our Seventh Unitarian Universalist principle calls us to respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. It's a wonderful statement. It can be a call to action, a spiritual practice, a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. And more, I think of this principle as a call to not only respect, but to actively do our part to repair the interdependent web of all existence. Animals teach us so much. To take only what we need, to find joy in the everyday, to give and receive love with open hearts, to listen and to constantly learn new tricks. I believe animals help us to evolve. They help us evolve in the ways of love, in the ways of compassion. It's a yearning connection, and our challenge is to remind the human spirit that despite all apparent differences, all of us have wings of one sort or another, and all of us are intended to fly. In a moment, we will have our blessing of the animals. To bless another is more than simply saying a few words. It means to honor, to lift, to affirm the value and worth and life of another in such a way that we promise to turn our actions toward ensuring justice for another. To bless the animals means to live life with integrity for all on this planet. It means to take their well-being into our considerations and into our decisions with an awareness of how our decisions impact the world, remembering it's their world as well. It means to wake up to the conditions of factory animals, of extinguishing species, of abused and neglected pets. They have always been there for us, and now it is our turn to stand up and be there for them. So as we bless these animals today, may our holy words rekindle our commitment to blessing all beings. May we reach out in kindness to all life. May we seek justice in the care of every life, and may we offer compassion to each and all. May we commit to caring for our planet itself, giving thanks for the life it brings to us. May this blessing today wash away our despair and bathe us in hope and new possibility. May we listen deeply with all of our being. May we nurture all life and listen to those whose voices are not like our own. May they teach us dignity of love. May they teach us empathy and nurture. And may we be transformed. I now invite you into the giving and receiving of the morning's offering. Our summer offering goes to support the continued work of this community, and we thank you for your generosity. I now invite you into a blessing for all the animals in our lives and all the animals that share this remarkable world. Call to mind the animals closest to your heart, perhaps the ones that share your home. Call to mind all the animals, the monkeys, lions, armadillos, cows, pigs, horses, spiders, caterpillars. Think of the most beautiful animal you've ever seen. Think of the smallest animal you can imagine. Think of the largest animal you know. Think of the animal whose majesty or beauty left you breathless. Each of these, in its own way, contributes to the complex and interwoven mystery of life. We are attached in some way to all these beings. They teach us to care. They teach us about companionship and responsibility. Through this care, we reaffirm time and again our commitment to holding dear holding together, weaving and reweaving, repairing this interdependent web. Gathered here, we pause to acknowledge our place in creation and our responsibility to it. We lift up grateful hearts for the infinite variety of creatures which make our own existence richer. As human beings, stewards of the earth, we extend our blessings to our brothers and sisters of fur and claw, wing and fin, scale and hoof, paws and feathers. We promise to live with them in harmony as best we can, to be respectful of the fact that we share this planet, to refrain from exploiting them to selfish or abusive ends. We pray today for all the animals who are sick and harmed, for those who love them, that they may find peace at the last and comfort in love. We join our spirits in praise and thanks for all those who live among us as guides and helpers, rescuers of the lost and hurt, companions to the suffering. We thank them in our hearts. May our gratitude today be transformed into gratitude for all creation. May we use this force of gratitude to create the world of our imagining. And I'd now like to invite anyone who'd like to come forward to light a candle of remembrance or a candle of gratitude for all of the animals, for an animal that you love that is no longer with you, in thanks for all the gifts they bring into our lives. these words from Albert Schweitzer. Hear our humble prayer, O gentle and merciful Spirit, for our friends, the animals, especially for animals who are suffering or deserted or frightened or hungry. We entreat for them all thy mercy, and for those who deal with them, we ask a heart of compassion and gentle hands and kindly words. Make us ourselves to be true friends to animals, and so to share the blessings of the merciful. Blessed be, and amen. And if you will rise now in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 203.
Amen.
the faithful, for they shall be our companions. Blessed are the playful, for they shall be surrounded with love and laughter. Blessed are those without worry, for through them we shall know peace. Blessed are the innocent, for theirs is the realm of heaven. Blessed are the animals, and blessed are we for their presence in our lives. Blessed be, go in peace, and please be seated for the postlude.